problem-based PBL example.
Hello everyone and welcome to the video. What we're going to look at in this video is an example of what problem-based learning looks like in a design context. So this example will focus on the problem that I had with trying to get a Twitter feed into the Edmodo course environment. So this is a problem that I actually experienced setting up this class. This course has a Twitter hashtag that I created. I'll talk more about this in the communication video, but essentially it's just a way for us to share things that we find that relate to the course. I'm really hoping that you use Twitter and that you're going to share some of the stuff that you find interesting to this hashtag, which will then be shared with your peers. So I was setting up the feed, I came across a problem. How do I share this feed of the hashtag with the whole group? Another layer to this problem is that we're using Edmodo as our platform of communication. And so the challenge is to identify a way for Edmodo and Twitter to communicate with one another. Unfortunately, as I was setting up the Edmodo group, I noticed that it didn't have a Twitter plugin like some of the other platforms that I had used. So this was my first problem. One way to solve this problem would be to create a link between Edmodo and Twitter. So I just create a URL that gets put into Edmodo, and that would take you to the Twitter feed. This is a pretty simple solution, but unfortunately I've tried it before, and the problem is that it doesn't work. The feed usually gets lost somewhere in the hierarchy of the course files. People don't go to view it, it gets forgotten, and then nobody reads it. So this actually doesn't work as a solution. So my problem now becomes a little bit more specific. My problem becomes, how do I figure out a way to have a live feed of our Twitter hashtag visible to everyone in the course so that the information stays up to date and relevant? This problem is both pedagogical and technological, and I started to try and figure it out. This is where we get into what I call the T&E of PBL. So the T stands for trial, the E stands for error, and from my experience, mostly it's just error. That's what problem-based learning is about, making mistakes. So I started off my process by sending a message to the Edmodo support group to see if I could embed Twitter somehow. Maybe I missed something in the process. After sending a post to the support discussion board, I got a quick reply that basically said, nope, you can't do this. There's no way this can actually happen. Now, here's an important point about problem-based learning. If this was a problem that somebody else had asked me to solve, or if it was a hypothetical problem, I may have stopped there. But it wasn't. It's a real problem. It's my problem. I created it. I need to solve it. So the Edmodo advice, or lack thereof, was a barrier that just had to be overcome. So my next step, as often is the case, is I Googled it. Google, in case you don't know, is one of the best resources for solving problems. Now, the process from this point gets a little bit lengthy and messy, so I'm going to try and do my best to make it concise, but I do want to share the process with you so you can see that it's just not easy and identify where the learning actually occurs. So the first step in my process when I went to Google was to look at what Edmodo can do. And I figured out that Edmodo doesn't have a Twitter plugin, but you can subscribe to RSS feeds. So the question is, does Twitter have RSS feeds? Because if they do, then the problem is solved. I could just use Edmodo to subscribe to the RSS feed that Twitter has. Now, Twitter used to have an RSS script, but as of June 2013, they discontinued the service. Thanks a lot, Twitter. This turns into another problem. Are there other ways to turn a Twitter hashtag into an RSS feed? Because if there are, then that might be able to work. So I go back to Google. And what I figured out is that there were a few websites that actually can do this for you. Deliverit.com is one of the websites. So I went there. I tried it out. I set up a couple of things. And then I got to a page that says, hey, you owe us some money. And I'm pretty cheap. I didn't want to pay for anything. So that solution didn't work. My first fail. Had to move on to the next. A couple other websites that I found that did a similar thing, but they were free. So I tried them as well. I was doing this for about an hour. By the time the hour was up, after trying multiple sites, I had failed again, several times. As you can see, there's a pattern, as I mentioned. Trial and error, mostly error. So then my next step was to go back to Google, try and figure out a way around this problem. Then I found a website where somebody had addressed the issue of creating an RSS feed for Twitter using a Google script. Now, I had no idea what a Google script is, so I had to teach myself what a Google script was. And here comes an essential skill for problem-based learning, following instructions. So there was a nice gentleman who created a video, had instructions step by step on how to create a Twitter app, and how to create a Google script, and how to get them to communicate with one another. So I spent about an hour and a half going through this process, trying to figure it out, realizing that I was reading a post that was old, and so I had to reread to find a more updated one. And then I went through it. And then, lo and behold, it failed. It didn't work. And so I was back to square one. And so I really started to focus on this RSS feed thing. What is an RSS feed really? I mean, I've heard of it, I've subscribed, I've used them, but I really didn't have a complete understanding of what it was. So what did I do? I Googled it. And I've tried to figure out a couple of different places that have RSS feeds. Most websites have some type of RSS feed, but one of the most common ways that RSS feeds are generated is through blogs. One example of a blog program is WordPress. WordPress is one of the most popular programs in the entire internet for hosting blogs. And I just happen to have a WordPress account. And so I started to think, could I use my WordPress account as the RSS feed and then get that connected somehow to Twitter? If I could do this, then that might be a good solution. But now my problem was very technological, and it turns out to be this. How do I get my hashtag for the course to communicate with my WordPress to then eventually communicate with Edmodo? And I have no idea at this point. I don't know what the solution is to the problem, but now I'm starting to redefine my problem. Then I started to think about a tool that had recently been introduced to by a friend. It's called If This Then That, and it's a website that automates processes on the web. Basically, the user creates a recipe so that if A happens, then B will happen. So theoretically, if I was to tweet to the course hashtag, then it could send that tweet to my blog as a post, and then if I subscribe via my blog's RSS in Edmodo, the RSS feed will go to Edmodo and it will pick up the tweets. This seemed like a really viable solution to me. I was actually really excited. It was 3 a.m. in the morning and I had a lot of energy because I was engaged. After about 8 hours of searching and troubleshooting, I'd finally found a solution. So then I had to implement it. Now, I didn't necessarily want all my postings from my own blog to be going to the Edmodo site, so I created a unique website just for the course. The next step was to grab the RSS feed. Once I did that, I went to Edmodo and subscribed to the RSS feed. Then I went to If This Then That and I set up a recipe that basically said that if I send a tweet to the hashtag for this course, that would get sent to WordPress, which would then get sent to Edmodo. And voila, the Twitter feed now shows up on Edmodo, and my problem has been solved. Now, was this easy? No, it wasn't. Did I learn a lot? Yes. The problem created an opportunity for me to learn, and that's essentially what problem-based learning is. I eventually shared my solution with the Edmodo community, and they posted it to their forum so that others who might have the same problem would have a potential solution. But it was the process that was really meaningful for me. And this shows a few things about problem-based learning. The first thing is that it's based on real problems. If this problem was hypothetical, I probably would have given up when Edmodo said it couldn't be done, or when the Twitter stopped using the RSS feed, or when my Google script that I wrote twice didn't work. But I needed a solution, so I kept exploring. I kept asking questions. As I said, trial and error, mostly error. Secondly, it shows that learning is dynamic, it's diverse, and most of all, it's messy. I had to ask questions, explore solutions, I had to fail a bunch of times, I curated resources, and I talked to people in different learning communities. The third thing is that content emerged from the process of trying to find a solution to the problem. And in this regard, learners and facilitators have previous knowledge that's relevant to the problem. I knew what Edmodo was, I knew what Twitter was, but it was trying to figure out how to get them to talk to one another. So for this course, I'm assuming that you know some things. You're assuming that I know some things. But guess what? We both have things that we don't know and we'll need to explore to figure those things out. As a result, in this course, there's no fixed content that is necessarily delivered. Rather, the content is relevant to the problems that we create in the course. So I hope that this provides some example of what problem-based learning looks like in a design context. If you have any questions regarding the content in the video, you can please post those questions to the Edmodo community or email me directly.
Thanks for watching video 1.5, Design-Based PBL Example.